I've been sitting on these stairs for hours now. All I can think about is how much I want a ham and cheese sandwich, or some porridge, or plain rice. Any of the hundreds of foods I'd taken for granted over my 26 years would do. This all started about 3 days ago. Maybe 4. 5 max. It's been difficult to keep track. I woke up in a bedroom I didn't recognize, in a stranger's flat, on the top floor of a 19-story tower block. I'm sorry, Mom, Dad, if either of you read this, but we all know how I got there. There's only one reason a woman my age would wake up in an unfamiliar bed after a night on the town. Let's not get into it, though. I only have a 5% phone battery left, and I don't want to waste it apologizing for being a woman in her 20s in 2021. Besides, quarantine was hard on all of us. My parents are married and share a bed. I had nobody to scratch my itches during lockdown. There's a time and a place for being chased, but the months after being locked indoors alone with nothing but the Ann Summers catalog and Amazon for company isn't it. So yeah, I banged a stranger I met at a bar. #sorry not sorry. I didn't remember him or the actual, that morning. I still don't. Granted, I've had bigger problems since then than a little drunk memory loss, but that's just it. I know I wasn't that far from sober. Not to put too fine a point on it, but I had no intention of spending that night in my own bed. I just remember speaking to someone in a bar. I can't even really be sure that it was a man. It wouldn't be the first time I've played for my own side, but I don't think that's why the face I tipsily fluttered my eyelids at is a swirling blur whenever I cast my mind's eye over the events leading up to where I am now, slowly dying on these damn stairs. I don't think my drink was spiked either. I did have a spiked drink once, although thankfully nothing happened. I felt like absolute garbage the next day, and my memories of the previous 24 hours were a blur. This memory loss didn't feel like that. Everything was clear, from the imagery to the emotions. I remember being excited about finally getting laid. I definitely consented and was in a cohesive enough state to do so. No, the only foggy details this time are the stranger's face and what happened once we started walking to the taxi rank from the bar. Whoever they were, they weren't there in the morning. I waited around in the pristine one-bedroom flat for about half an hour just to be polite. A quick glance of my contacts told me we hadn't exchanged numbers, and nobody had tagged me in any photos of the night before yet. They still haven't, actually. I've tried reaching out to Bex or Sammy, but any messages I write get sent as garbled nonsense. Garbled nonsense that's been left unread for days now. God. I hope this post gets out now that I think about it. I'd hate to be wasting my last few minutes begging for someone to send help only for... No, I can't think like that. Positive vibes. I didn't realize I was on the top floor until I left the flat and found myself on the landing. The wide windows gave an amazing view of London, and I inhaled deeply despite the air being not at all fresh or invigorating. I wasn't even outdoors. Sometimes it's just nice to breathe, Especially when you're a bit hungover and still not quite sure where you are. That's the thing, you see. The panic hadn't set in yet. I didn't know. I still don't. But the difference between then and now is that I understand fully just how vast the scope of what we don't know actually is. The flat I'd left was one of 4 with a 5th door on the wall opposite the floor-ceiling windows. Through the glass and wire mesh panel, I could see it led to the stairwell. No lift, I mumbled. First time I get laid in over a year, and somehow 2 glasses of wine got me too drunk to remember, and now there's no lift? Fantastic. I had no choice but to take the stairs, I tried to find a silver lining in the fact that climbing down 19 flights of stairs was an excuse to skip leg day, or as Sammy, Queen of Squats, referred to it, Get Thick Thursdays. I only knew it was 19 flights because of the bronze plaque hung above the door on the other side, which I noticed as I tried to close the door to the landing behind me as quietly as I could so as not to wake the swirling-faced stranger's neighbors. My phone told me it was still 7 a.m., not a time you can guarantee most people are awake. Right now, my phone is still saying that it's 7 a.m. In case you're wondering, it's been 7 a.m. for days. It was also still 7 a.m. when I stopped, out of breath at what I counted to be floor 11. My brow furrowed as I stared at the defiant white 7 o'clock on my iPhone. I've been descending staircase after staircase for at least 10 minutes. I mean, I wasn't exactly checking, but I'd got through at least 3 songs of my playlist. My earphones had prompted a drop to 50% battery a song and a half ago. I was pretty damn sure I hadn't managed to descend 8 flights of stairs in under 60 seconds. And now my phone's bugging out, I sighed. Please, universe, all I wanted was to get laid. Why are you punishing me like this? My voice and the footsteps that followed once I resumed my descent echoed along the flights behind and ahead. I must admit, at the time the view kind of took me away. With glass walls from ground floor to roof, the painted red iron railings could be leant over at any point for a fantastic view of the city so far below. It was about 2 songs and 7 flights of stairs later when I had to stop again to stare out at the view I'm now sick of, that the truth I still don't understand started to dawn on me. I was leaning over the railing looking at the city beyond the glass with my attention elsewhere when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sammy. Hey you, saw you sneak away with that handsome stranger, smiley face. Hope it was a better ride than he who must not be named. You have to give me all the juicy details after our meeting in an hour. I smirked at first, then reread what she said and blanched. The meeting? Sam and I work in the same department. Suddenly I realized that as much as she cared about my escapades, the real subtext of the message was, it's 10 a.m., where the fuck are you? I hastily thumbed out a reply. Sorry mate, phone died, overslept. We'll be with you ASAP. Don't worry about the court review. I'll make it. I hope, I muttered, then hit send. The message that appeared in the chat box, however, was very different. Up, down, the definition of Sisyphus is banging your head against the same thing you've never tried. I banged my phone against my thigh, cursing under my breath. Of all the fucking mornings. I typed out a new message to Sammy. Damn, phone is on the fritz. Autocorrect is on haywire. Be with you soon. Again, the message that my phone delivered wasn't the one my fingers typed. On an endless spinning wheel, back and forth, the metal orbs click-clack. For fuck's sake. It took all my energy not to throw my phone over the railing. I jabbed the call icon next to Sammy's name, trying to urge the frustration from my voice so the illusion of ultra-adult professionalism I'd cultivated over the last 3 years wasn't shattered. After 3 dial tones, there was a click, then breathing at the end of the line. I began blabbering away instantly. Sammy, hey, sorry, listen. I'm on the bus, but stuck in traffic because there was a flood at the tube station, but I'll be in the office in half an...
It's no time to play outside.
I shrieked. The phone dropped to the tiles with a clatter, skittering to a halt at the foot of one of the red iron railings. The voice that cut through my garbled apology was not Sammy's. It was stretched, disjointed, a sentence made of words formed by playing unspeakable truths from the mouths of the lowest dregs of the 9th circle backwards at half speed. The inflections were all wrong in a way that no impediment or accent ever made human speech. Every vowel cracked, every syllable bent. Not a voice carrying emotion or reason, but an aggressive, imposing noise willing itself into coherence. My knees protested as I fell to them, angry at being slammed so hard into the cold tiles. I felt the warmth on my face before they hit the floor. In 6 words, the voice that answered Sammy's phone had reduced me to a blubbering, quivering mess. I don't scare easy. I was a voluntary PCSO for a few years, and I'm pretty damn good at Krav Maga. A girl that's half raised by her 2 older brothers knows how to take what life throws at her on the chin. That voice, though. My body responded to that voice before my brain registered not having the vocabulary to comprehend the messages my ears were sending. That voice was wrong. I don't have another word for it. It was not something that should be, and some dormant instinct in me knew that. We're all the descendants of the cavemen that didn't stop to think before they ran away from the monsters after all. Lord knows why I picked the phone back up. Another instinct, I guess. I wanted help, comfort, safety. Where had I found that during the quarantine? Through a phone screen. Tears were still flowing freely as I shakily turned the phone over. My stomach tightened, lip trembling, choked breaths catching in my throat. The screen had cracked, but the call had ended. The only communication was a message from Sammy. "Babe, I can see you read the messages. I'm getting those 3 dots, but nothing has come through. Just tried giving you a call. Ring me when you can, yeah? Worried about you now, hon. Kiss, kiss." The word salad I thought my phone had sent wasn't going through. That was a relief, at least. Enough of one to bring me enough control to sniff and begin the process of getting my sobbing under control. At this point, I was still clinging on with dear life to the phone glitch explanation. Even before I lay on my back and stared at the ceiling, though, I think some part of me knew just how bad my situation really was even then. I rolled over onto my back, trying to slow my breathing and compose myself. Big, deep breaths, I repeated the mantra over and over, trying to put as much mental and emotional distance as possible between the present moment and that voice. Now, for all my qualities, I'm not what you'd call observant. That's why it took about 4 dozen mantra recitals and a lot of stop-start shallow sobbing fits for me to notice the glaring incongruence between my recollection of the last hour and my present surroundings. The brass plaque above the door on this floor contained 2 digits. 19. That can't be right. I'd been descending stairs for close to an hour. By my count, I should only have been 5 flights from the ground floor lobby. I rolled over, peering over the shin-high gap between the rail and the cold tiles. Far below, 19 flights of stairs away, was the ground floor, as distant as when I peered over the railing after leaving the swirling-faced stranger's landing. "No," I muttered. The tremble I tried so hard to mantra away returning. No, 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 no. It was the second time that morning some ancient instinct from our cave-dwelling ancestors took over. Instead of trying to comprehend the impossibility of my situation, I was up and on my feet. I'll try and feign no bravery here. I was screaming for help, bawling my eyes out and trying to gulp the air my raw lungs needed through sobs. But I knew my only chance to reach the real world and prove this was all some alcohol-induced fever dream was to run down those stairs as fast as I fucking could. Just as when I had casually walked down in the innocent time before my situation became apparent, I paid no heed to the brass floor number plaques. I counted instead in my head. 4 floors. 3 floors to go. 2 floors, come on. Last floor. Last floor, yes! I triumphantly threw my sweaty, disheveled frame around the final corner to find myself stood, an undeserved grin on my frantic features, staring at a bronze plaque labeled 19. Fuck. I smashed more cartilage as I threw myself to the ground again. This wasn't happening. This was the only thought racing through my mind. It had to be a nightmare. This wasn't possible, it just wasn't. I tried the sprinting stunt more times than I can count. In the end, I wasn't even trying to track floors. I just ran down miles and miles of stairs until every muscle screamed and I started coughing up blood-flecked phlegm. I had already long passed the point of vomiting. I didn't just try descending either. The stairway up from the floor 19 landing didn't lead, as I had assumed when I first saw it back when I still thought I understood reality, to the roof. Every single one of the 37 times I tried to climb the stairs to the level above floor 19, it led to the same place, floor 19. In case you're wondering, yes, I did try watching the city to see if the perspective changed or the ground below got closer as I descended. They never did. Much like the slight glimpse of the street-level lobby, the position of the ground and city would shift and reset after every flight as I was watching it, almost like when your eyes refocus enough for the magic eye picture to return to normal. After several hours of trying almost uninterrupted cardio, I had to turn my phone off. Whilst the clock and sunlight outdoors hadn't moved, my battery level had. Judging by the sudden growling, so had my stomach. Time may have stopped around me, I realized, but biologically everything was still ticking along. I smacked my tongue against the roof of my mouth. It was bone dry. Food wasn't the only essential I was becoming increasingly aware of my lack of access to. There was nothing for it. I was going to have to try one of the flats. You're wondering why I hadn't already. I know, and I wish I had a better explanation than blind panic. I was long past the point of thinking coherently. The only decision I'd been capable of making until hunger and thirst became a reality was run away from floor 19. The idea of knocking on the door of one of the flats for help had occurred to me, but the same instinct which threw the phone from my hand when I heard that voice kept keeping me away from leaving the stairwell and heading back into the floor 19 landing. That is, it had kept me away until the realization dawned that starvation was, for the first time in my comfortable British life, a serious concern. It had already been at least 18 hours since I'd eaten or drank anything. Maybe more, and the sudden wrench in my belly confirmed this. Shaking, I turned to the landing door, peering at the sunlit space and 4 red doors beyond the glass and wire mesh. I pushed the door open and stepped through. I found myself stood on the floor 19 stairwell facing the ground-to-roof window view from the dawn-lit city. This isn't happening. What few shreds of composure remained left in me, I howled, curled up in a ball and kicking the floor like a toddler throwing a tantrum. Existential terror pulled my inner child forward when it became clear that no inferior adult rationale, reason, or logic could help me.
"Daddy,"
I wailed.
"Daddy, Mummy, Daddy, please help. Please help, Daddy, I'm trapped. Please, Daddy."
I begged and begged the calm morning sun, red iron rails, and bronze plaque for what felt like hours until I finally, somehow fell asleep. That was 3 or 4 days ago. I'm still on floor 19, laying here on these stairs. I don't have the energy to move anymore. I haven't eaten or drank anything in nearly 5 days. I can barely even see. I haven't seen another living soul either, outside or on the stairs. The only sounds have been my own screams, sobs, and cursing. If I sound like I've given up, it's because I have. I've thrown myself over the railings at least twice a day. I kept my eyes closed the first few times. At the moment I felt I was going to hit the ground, I instead would get an unpleasant, but not really painful, all-body thumping sensation. I'd open my eyes and, sure enough, there I was again, floor 19. The only time I didn't close my eyes was the last. I kept them open because I wanted to see if there was something, anything that could give me a clue as to what the fuck was happening. I knew I definitely was falling past about 19 flights of stairs. There had to be a moment between hitting the ground and waking up on floor 19 again, I reasoned, where I could see the ground floor lobby. There was. I was right. But my God, I wish I wasn't. They were waiting for me in the lobby, stood just out of view of the stairwell. Dozens of them. Shapeless things, formless patches of wrongness imposing themselves upon the man-sized gaps of reality each of them occupied. They had no color, no tone or shade or substance, no real discerning qualities at all save for the fact that they were watching me. The prickling feeling on the back of your neck when you know you're being watched magnified 1,000-fold given form. There was nothing of them to see, but I saw them nonetheless. Matter behaves differently under observation, and I learned then that our eyes do too. Sometimes you're staring into the abyss because you feel it staring at you first. I knew I was at the mercy of the things all children knew lurked in the shadows, but I was seeing them when there were no shadows to lurk in, naked and unashamedly parading their obscene noncompliance with reality, the things that taught us fear before we mastered fire. I'd seen something human minds had long since forgotten how to process without snapping. In that split second, I could see, or sense, or know them. Pick your term. None are right. To understand all of this, they knew I understood too, because I could see, sense, know what they were doing down there. They were laughing at me with a dozen copies of a voice I recognized.
Ha. Ha. Ha.
I was glad to wake up on floor 19 just that once. In some ways, it's been a small relief. I don't want to reach the ground floor anymore. I've not been able to move for a few hours now. Typing this is a struggle. The lack of sustenance has finally caught up with me. I've been laying here watching the sun never rise or set as my vision incrementally fades. I'm going to have to stop soon. I don't have many words left in me. Fingers crossed this does actually make it to the internet. How I have signal here, I don't know. To be blunt, my battery is nearly dead, and so am I. I'd had expensive tastes in life, frivolous tastes. Right now, all I can think of is how much I want a sandwich. Something as simple as 2 slices of bread and a piece of ham to give me enough calories and energy to carry on a little longer, to make another attempt to reach the roof. I can't try descending again. For the last half hour, I've heard sounds coming from down there. Echoes of dozens of non-feet ascending cold stone tiles, and the blood-thinning titter of disjointed backwards laughter, drawing closer and closer. Hello everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. I certainly had fun working on this one. And if you did, please show your support by clicking the like button, sharing this video, and most importantly, subscribing if you'd like to see more. Also leaving a comment. I do love hearing feedback from you. And until next time, see you soon.